What is the boldest thing you've ever done that you haven't told anyone about? Story 1. This is a recent story, and I am a guy. I was recently on a study abroad trip in China for a month and a half. Next to the place I was staying, there was a Chinese college with basketball courts, so I went there every day to play. Every day I went there would always be this girl there that would watch me, and every time I did something good, she would smile. This indicated to me, maybe, just maybe, she liked me even though we never spoke. Fast forward about 2 weeks of the same thing going on every day, and I walk up to the courts and see her sitting on a bench texting. Now I don't speak any Chinese at all, so I knew talking to her about anything substantial was useless. So I took out my phone and did what any 20-year-old boy who hasn't done it in months would do. I took out my phone and Google translated, "I think you're beautiful and would love to do it with you" from English to Mandarin and showed her. She saw the screen and just smiled, grabbed my hand and took me behind the college, and we did it. I was so surprised this worked, but I also feel a little naughty that it happened. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 3. I was in Singapore, which has a relatively conservative culture, at least on the surface. There was this girl whom I met online, and we had been exchanging flirty texts and emailing some stories for a while. She was a big fan of vampire movies and Underworld just came out, and she had picked up 2 tickets for us. So we went to the movie theater, and I strongly recommend those that have couple seats. She mentioned that the movie was sold out, and these were the only seats she could get. During the movie, a lot of teasing happened, but nothing on the obvious zones. Understand this, even before we had been in the theater, the tension between us was almost palpable. The teasing during the movie was deliberate, as I believe that prolonging and increasing the anticipation exponentially increases the eventual reward. And so, the movie ends with us being very frustrated, slightly drunk, the credits roll, and the cinema goes dark, at which point we start making out. Oblivious to the lights coming on and the crowd streaming out, we fumble around like drunken teenagers, receiving what I assume were dirty and envious looks from people around us. Without really consciously noticing it, we were progressively leaving the PDA zone and entering the indecent exposure zone. Now, to this day, I don't know why it happened like this. Perhaps it was because we were watching the last show, or because the maintenance crew had a busy schedule. But the lights went off again. We took this as a sign and ended up on the floor. This was the first time I had appreciated Singapore's anti-chewing gum ban and the cleanliness of the general public. The soft carpet of the cinema was not sticky, and the seats didn't have pre-chewed gum, and off we went. Within seconds, the floodgates were released. There were flashing lights, and I felt as if I had momentarily blacked out, the hours of teasing and frustration being released in a mind-numbing moment. If 1,000 people were staring at us, we wouldn't have cared. But of course it wasn't 1,000. It was only about 6 guys from the cleaning crew who had turned on the light. Their open-mouthed stare was the only thing that greeted me when I stood up, wrapped my jacket around my date, and sprinted out of the cinema. The walk of shame back into the cinema as one of the crew politely asked me to take my used rubber with me made this the time when I felt like a minx. Story 4. In the fall of 2007, I was dating a former drummer from a rockabilly band who was insane in the membrane. He was into swap and watch, something I was completely new to, save for watching it in Korn and hearing various Key Party 70s references. I was a fresh 18, and he was in his 30s. Anyways, I was open to exploring, so he had a surprise for me one night after dinner and a few drinks. Somewhere in Orange County, there's a Korn theater. I am sure there's more than one, but this is the one I went to. I think it had 3 to 4 screens, one being the larger main screen. It was kind of a seedy joint, with random dudes in the shadows obviously doing their solo performance. We hopped around a bit, and both quickly realized I was one of maybe 3 girls in the establishment. When in the main screen room, we went off to the sides, where there were L-shaped lattice fences about 10 to 12 foot high, a crappy attempt at a 3-walled private area. We started making out, hardly paying attention to the gay Korn playing through the slats. The drinks from dinner made things a bit fuzzy about how quickly things escalated, but I knew I was willing, and soon a few other men joined in. Yes, it was a groupie with me and 4 to 5 men. On the way back to his place, he kept teasing me, and we ended up having a mind-blowing night in his bed. It didn't last longer than 4 months, but I ran into him at a Flogging Molly concert in downtown Disney, and yes, I've been tested. I am completely STD-free. Story 5. I went to a top Ivy League school by some stroke of luck. When I arrived, I was frustrated and had only lightly kissed a boy. I was pretty hot at that point in time, but I was also an SAP. The other problem is that throughout my entire life, I have never been attracted to men my age. They have to be at least 7 to 8 years older. So all of the undergrad guys were out of the question. This left no one for me to hook up with, given my inability to non-awkwardly meet anyone older. One day, at the start of my sophomore year, I was perusing Craigslist, as this is part of my daily internet ritual. Usually, I just check the missed connections, but something that day led me to check the men seeking women section. I happened across an ad from a guy saying that he was a teacher. My heart raced. Here was the type of situation that I had fantasized about for years. Initially, I intended to just send him some teasing emails to blow off a little steam, but it turns out that his writing was really hot and that I was really in the mood. After many exchanged emails and photographs, it came to light that he was actually a professor at the same university I attended. Now keep in mind that student-professor relationships were strictly forbidden, but we decided that we needed to go ahead with it anyway. At this point, we were sending dozens of emails a day, and I couldn't think about anything else other than being with this guy. We decided that we needed to see each other in person. We started telling each other where we'd be and which coffee shop we'd be working in, so that we could show up and ogle each other from across the room. We never talked. There was too much risk since we both knew plenty of people around the area. Finally, we decided that we had to meet each other. I didn't tell a single soul about him. I snuck him through my shared suite and into my private bedroom. There, we talked, in person, for the first time since meeting each other 4 months prior. We said only a few words before we started making out. What followed was a torrid, frenzied 9-month affair. I gave my first blowy and lost my V-card on the floor of the library. I snuck him into my room almost every day after having developed a complex system of secret signals and code emails. We did so many other things that other can only fantasize. It was many months before I even found out his name. Eventually, he took a job at another university, and I settled down with a long-term boyfriend. No one ever found out, but he is still the stuff of my hottest fantasies. Story 6. When I was 18, I had my first FWB. One night in the middle of winter, he invited me over. I walked about 3/4 of a mile in the snow to get to him. We shared a bottle of expensive parentally owned wine, and I gave him blowy in his snowy backyard, because apparently if we did it inside, his parents would wake up and naturally disapprove. He seemed also deeply concerned that I wasn't Jewish, so if I was discovered, his parents would be doubly disappointed. Another time, I made out with 5 people in one night, for which my prize was a disgusting and painful hickey the size of a damn sand dollar. To top it off, maddeningly recently, I did it with one guy, went out on a date with another, and came home with a different one, all within 24 hours. And no, this didn't feel right. Yeah, I can't really do this stuff anymore. Story 7. I used Facebook to orchestrate the perfect week while traveling in Europe. Every day of the week, I did it with a different girl of a different nationality. 7 days, 7 girls, 7 nationalities. I flew into Brussels as it was cheaper than flying to Amsterdam. While out on the town for the one night that I was there, I met a random Swedish girl who was also taking the train to Holland the next day. We drank, made out a little bit, and did it but quietly. We were trying to behave ourselves and not disturb our hostel mates. We did not behave in the train bathroom the next day. Day 1, Sweden. I got off the train in Rotterdam, where an old high school girlfriend moved back to. I'd been keeping in touch with her over the years, first via email and now Facebook. I stayed with her for one night, and she was quite receptive to banging me several times in her room while her stuffed animals looked on. Creepily awesome. Day 2, Holland. I took the train from there to Amsterdam the next day, which happened to be the last night that an Arizonan girl I had previously met in Italy was in town. We didn't hook up in Italy, but the internet game is strong. Via Facebook, she had told me she'd upgrade from her hostel bed to a private room for the last night, and we could share it. I knew it was on. Her fake jugs made me frown for a minute, but then again, they looked awfully nice with smoothie on them. Day 3, USA. She took off the next morning. I had a girl flying in from Bristol to meet me in 2 days, so I assumed the streak was over. Oh well, it was a good run. Then, to my rescue, couch surfing. I head over to the guy's place that I found on couch surfing, and he introduces me to his girlfriend and their remarkably good-looking German roommate. I have grand plans to hit on said roommate, but she tells me that she has a date with her boyfriend and promptly departs. I have a nice casual dinner with the couple and plop down on the couch. Around 10 p.m., the hot roommate returns, drunk and upset, the date having apparently gone poorly. She flops down beside me on the couch, says she never wants to see her boyfriend again, talks crap a little bit about all Dutch men being big wimps, and then flips on a movie. A couple of minutes of cuddling, and she basically leaps on me, and just before the stroke of midnight, we were doing in the living room. She let me record too, a treasure I will keep forever. Day 4, Germany. The next day, the German girl seemed to be upset by her behavior and tells me to please not tell her roommates about what happened. She reassures me that I served her valiantly, but that she really wants to try and work things out with the boyfriend, so we needed to keep it between us. She tells me that she has a pretty single friend who will be joining us for drinks at the bar that night, and that she'll try and get this girl to make it up to me. Good girl, her friend isn't that great looking, but speaks in a hot French accent. I apparently insulted her by assuming that her French accent was due to her being French when she was in fact from Geneva, Switzerland. I got her to talk to me in French that night while we were doing it. Day 5, Switzerland. The next morning, I check into this nice downtown apartment with views looking out over the canals and await the arrival of my cute little Brit who is flying down from Bristol to spend a weekend with me. I had met her in the Greek islands, where she banged me on the roof of a hotel as the sun came up. It was like something out of a Korn video, but I digress. She flies in, and we spend the next 24 hours doing it with only a break to see the Anne Frank house. Weird. I made another video and took a lot of photos. Day 6, England. Day 7 rolls around, and it finally dawns on me that I am in the running for the perfect week. I suggest to my young English girl that perhaps we find a girl for a 3 score. She loves the idea, but I've also promised to take her to some stupid ice bar called Extra Cold or something. We get there and everyone is wearing parkas, freezing their butts off, and I am like, crap. My English girl makes a beeline straight toward a cute little brunette girl, makes some small talk, and we find out she's half Czech and half Hungarian. We have some drinks, and my girl leans in and says to the brunette, I want you to come back to our apartment and get really high and have some fun with me and my man. I cap off the perfect week with a 3-way. I was 26 at the time. Day 7, Czech Republic/Hungary. Story 8. I had a friend named Kay who had 2 sisters, R and S. R went through a bad breakup, so Kay thought she should set us up. Things went pretty well, and the 2 of us started seeing each other regularly. After about a month, we started getting intimate, and things went fine. Until a few weeks later, while we were in bed, she was acting unusually. I asked her what was wrong, and she admitted that the day before, she had slept with her ex-boyfriend. I was upset, so I went to talk to Kay. I walked over to her house, but Seth, the other sister, answered the door, saying that Kay was out. I was noticeably upset, so she invited me in. I told her about what happened, and she started to rub my shoulder, trying to make me feel better. We ended up kissing, and then things continued to escalate. We went into her room and banged. Story 9. I had an Asian girlfriend who I had been with for maybe 3 months, but so much insane stuff had gone down, we were in the process of breaking up, or more accurately, I was in the process of getting prepared to break up with her. Anyway, one evening, we were doing it, and later I decided to leave and walk back to my apartment. Note, I have not showered. On my way home, a girl I was involved with about a year earlier texted me to ask if she could call around. I say sure. An hour later, she arrives. I still have not showered. I can't remember why. I think I may have been stoned. As soon as she walks in the door, she does some policewoman routine where I am not allowed to talk and have to do what she tells me to do. I try to protest because I really need to take a shower, but she was very assertive. She starts to give blowy, and I will never forget the look on her face. A pure what the heck look, but she continues anyway. Story 10. Back in college, I was visiting a friend at another school for the weekend, so I had no inhibitions because no one knew me. We were at a house party and the place was packed. I had lost my friend at some point and was talking to this guy. He pulled me over to a couch and we started making out, and then gave a blowy right there in the open. But I did look around to make sure no one was looking. A few minutes later, a girl comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder, and asks me to leave her house and find a room. I promptly got up to go outside, where I could not find my friend, and followed a new group of boys to a different party, where one did it with me on the dance floor, and then we went back to his place and did it again. It turned out my friend knew this guy, and the next day we went to a party with them again, and I spent the night with one of his best friends, who I am pretty positive from the experience was a virgin. I could never go back to visit my friend after that weekend without shame. Story 11. This just happened last Friday. It's been about 7 months since I've been with someone, and the dating scene wasn't going as expected. I got hammered while I was out drinking with buddies and decided that I was getting laid that night. I did what any not at all self-respecting Forever Alone would have done. I hit Craigslist. For those who don't know, you don't search the casual encounters section on Craigslist when looking for a casual meetup because it is full of scammers. My best option was a Hail Mary in the general romance section. I looked for the most casual post that I could find. It very simply stated that she wanted to go out for drinks, and that's who I emailed. She responded immediately with her phone number, and from the moment she started speaking, I knew that she was a mess. We agreed that I would pick her up, since she didn't have a car. Upon picking her up, she offered a blowy but said that we couldn't go back to her place because she lived with her ex, who was cheating on her. My place was out of the question because of roommates, so I paid for a cheap hotel and a 12-pack of Coors Light. So here I am in this hotel room with a female janitor whose face eerily resembles Gene Simmons. She's completely wasted by this time and spewing utterly incoherent nonsense. At one point, she asks me to clean her toenails out with a key, because she likes it when her boyfriend does that. Nope, what the heck? Finally, she gets down to business, but either she did not know how to do it, or she was so wasted that she thought my dong was an arcade joystick because she continued to wag it back and forth like she was practicing her ultra combo. I stopped her and asked to simply bang instead. She agreed and made this disturbing grunting noise as we did it. I don't know how I managed to actually do it with this woman, but I did. I immediately got up, threw the rubber away, and got dressed. She was still yammering about her ex when I stepped out of the hotel room without saying a word. I got a call from her a half hour later, after she realized that I had left. She left a voicemail that stated, "I need your help. I am locked inside the room." Story 12. When I was 18 years old, my 3 friends and I drove 2 hours to crash a church purity retreat so that we could party with these girls that one of my compatriots had met through MySpace. They snuck us in after curfew under the noses of the pastors and disapproving nuns. Why nuns? I don't know, but trust me, there were nuns. There are 8 of us in total, 4 of them and 4 of us. I noticed that one girl, a demure redhead, has been giving me the eye all night. She was not what we would call attractive by conventional means, but she laughs at my stories, and at that moment I found that alluring. I am full of rot gut vodka and am feeling particularly affectionate. So she leads me back to her room, where we begin to make out. Things quickly accelerate. She proceeds to give me the roughest crab-clawed HJ that I have ever received in my life. She just tore into it. I could almost feel a blister forming. I gently grabbed her hand to indicate that she was not going about this procedure correctly, and she instantly teared up. It was her first time, and she was humiliated. In a heartfelt monologue, I inform her that it's nothing to be ashamed of. Uplifted, she asks if I would perhaps enjoy some blowies. I would. You can blame a lad for hoping. Unfortunately, this proceeds to be equally awful. Finally, I just faked it. She freaks out, then pauses and says she hardly felt anything. I tell her that, yeah, I hear that it feels like that. We cuddle. I then notice a picture of a dove and a cross hanging on her TV. I ask her why this particular adornment is there. There was no such hanging in her friend's room. Oh, that's because the under aren't allowed to watch television. Oh my. I ponder the implications of this poorly conceived age divider for a few moments before fatigue and the comfort of a warm body beside me drive me to sleep. 3 hours later, my friend wakes me up and tells me that we need to leave immediately. I throw on my clothes and we run into the hallway. The kids are already coming out of their rooms. Adults are up. We do not belong, and we are incredibly obvious. Looks are being exchanged. Knowing that the jig is up, we throw caution to the wind and run as fast as our legs will carry us, out of the lobby, past the visibly annoyed pastor, and into the car, where we peel out and drive as if we'd just robbed a bank. Everyone laughs at the fun we all had the previous evening. Story 13. A couple years ago, I was on a trip to Chicago and ended up staying at one of those older hotels in the downtown area. I was visiting potential law schools and decided to stay for a few days to take in some sights. It wasn't the nicest hotel since I was still a student and was not able to afford something nicer for 5 days, but it did offer a continental breakfast, which turned out to be completely terrible. The only thing I ate during breakfast for the first 2 days was cereal, and they happened to have Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I must have had a dozen boxes in the first 3 days. I packed my backpack with it and ate a box while visiting the Sears Tower. So, over the course of those few days, I couldn't help but get to know the hotel staff members. I was traveling alone, and I didn't know anyone in town, so friendly conversations were welcomed. One of the girls who worked on the kitchen staff noticed my penchant for the cinnacrack and joked that I had an addiction. She was in her early 20s, my age, seemed cute, and was a little flirty. I didn't mind the attention. But then on the 5th and final day, I went to the lobby for my normal bowl of sweetened cinnamon goodness, and everything fell apart. The cereal boxes were gone. All that was left were what looked to be week-old croissants, crestfallen. I turned to go back to my room when I heard a whisper. "Mr. Cinnamon Crunch? I think I may have something you're looking for." There was Ms. Staff Member, beckoning me from a doorway labeled for employees only. Curious, I approached her, thinking she was joking, hiding my Cinnamon Crunch from me. When I got to the door, she ushered me inside the room. It had a bed, a dresser, no window, and a barely separated restroom area. I later found out that this was an overflow room for emergencies when a spare guest room was absolutely needed. She was very businesslike in her proposition. If we sleep together, I get the goods. She then pulled out a large cardboard box filled with about 50 Cinnamon Toast Crunch boxes. I looked at her as if she had to be joking. She wasn't. For weeks, I indulged in a lavish diet. Story 14. I was on my way to being drunk at the bar when a cute girl started giving me the eye. We started dancing and eventually started making out on the dance floor. We made our way out to my car, where we continued to make out. As we are about to leave, her friends come out and drag her away. Now, I had just been kissing her, and apparently her earring had come off right as her friends were dragging her away. I didn't notice it at first, and she was gone so quickly that I couldn't give it back to her. I just put it in my change tray and forgot about it. Fast forward to about 2 months later, I pull up to a comedy club, and as I am parking, she walks by. I don't know how I managed to recognize her, and I certainly didn't know her name, but I remembered that I still had her earring in my change tray. I ran up to her and said, "Excuse me," and she said yes and looked at me as if she obviously didn't recognize me. I said, "I think this is your earring," and she said, "Oh my God, where did you find that?" I said, "In my mouth," and we just stared at each other blankly for a few moments. She nodded and looked at the ground while sticking out her hand. I gave it back silently and walked the other direction. Story 15. I had a girl that I used to hook up with come over one day to do our usual thing, while also making plans for another girl that I had previously dated and was sort of talking to again to come over later in the evening. I had a really good time with the first girl, but I just couldn't get to the finish line. No matter what I tried, no matter how good it felt, it wasn't happening for me. She was a little bummed, but I told her it was cool, and she left. I had planned on cleaning up the house a little, washing the sheets and showering before the other girl came over. I realized that I had taken so long trying to get to the finish line that I had maybe 15 minutes before the other girl would be getting here. I threw the sheets in the wash and didn't worry about cleaning, but I realized I was still going to smell like I did something. So I quickly grabbed a washcloth and just tried to clean myself as best as I could before she got there. Eventually, when we started doing it, I finally reached to the finish line and it was awesome. Neither of them knows about that. Story 16. When I was 19, I toked with my cousin's boyfriend and then did it with him after she went home. Again, when I was 19, I was the only girl hanging out with a group of about 10 guys. We were drinking a bit, playing video games, etc. I banged 3 of them in a row. Then again, at 19, I did it with a family friend on the living room floor of my cousin's place. He was married. I had my first 3 score at the age of 20. I met a guy and he took me to Canada to celebrate my birthday. On the way back to his place, I told him I thought his roommate was hot. So when we got back to the apartment, I went into his roommate's bedroom and asked if I could do it with both of them. I will never forget it. Once I was in Cancun, getting it on with a guy I just met at the resort. He forgot to latch the door, and his buddy came into the room and shouted, "Oh crap, sorry, I will leave." And I said, "No, why don't you come join us?" He did, and then the rest of his friends came in and started snapping photos. Next, I met up with a guy I met on a flight. He was on business with some coworkers. We ended up bringing one of them back to the hotel room with us and filmed our 3 score. I also gave a guy some blowy for a Louis Vuitton bag. I attempted to hire a dancer in Amsterdam to go to town with me. She wouldn't do it, but a guy standing nearby offered. So we went back to my place, and he went to town. I've slept with, and continued to do so, with 4 of my mom's coworkers, and surprisingly, none of them know about one another. I went on a trip to Madrid with an ex-boyfriend. He was an ex at the time, and he was trying to win me back. On our last night there, I met some guys at a pub who invited us to come to a salsa club. Once at the salsa club, one of the guys was teaching me how to dance with him and flirting with me hardcore, right in front of my ex. Things got really heated, and we ended up in the bathroom. I banged Green Day's manager to get tickets to that night's concert. I went to the beach house with my parents and a couple of their friends. One of their friends had a relative with them from another country. He hardly spoke any English, but somehow I ended up in the lake with him, having some naughty fun. A guy took me out on a date, and I decided to spend the night with him. In the morning, he left to run some errands, and I did it with his roommate while he was gone. I've also been a sugar baby to many wealthy men, a type of relationship where he provides financial gifts for me being his arm candy. I lost count a long time ago of how many people I have slept with. Chances are, if you know a guy, I've banged him. It blows my mind to recap all of this, and it makes me very glad I have always been hardcore about using protection and keeping up with doctor visits. Lately, my habits have slowed down, and I actually haven't done it in months. I am ready to leave my naughty life behind and maybe find the right one someday. Story 17. It started out as a joke. My friends had joked about it, even egged each other on to try it. We all laughed at the concept. Banging a bowl of Cheerios? The mere idea sent shivers down my spine. The initial roughness in texture and the cold milk. What joy could there be in that, I thought to myself. After a few weeks, nobody brought it up anymore. We'd moved on to different jokes and catchphrases, as most groups do. They weren't as funny, but they definitely weren't as weird. We did the usual things, and Friday was drinking day. By 2 a.m., all 4 of us were plastered. Jake let out a long sigh after pounding another shot of SoCo, and Kevin was loudly snoring on the couch. After 20 minutes or so, it was just Steve and I alone left, finishing off our remaining beers. "Dude, hold on," Steve smiled. "What's up, man?" I said in my drunken stupor. Steve sloshed his way over to his refrigerator and removed a gleaming white bowl from the fridge. I instantly knew what it was. "What the heck is that, Steve?" I asked. "Freaking Cheerios, man. You should do them." He seemed excited. "Dude, it was just a joke. Don't tell me you—" I was cut off. "Nah, dude, I didn't bang no Cheerios, but I will bet you $50 you won't do it." I had my excuse. "Fine, I will do it," I said. "How will I know you did it, huh?" I froze up. "Is this some elaborate ploy for you to see my freaking dong, bro?" I shouted, nearly waking our sleeping companions. "Nah, dude, I just don't want any cheating, man. I got $50 on this crap." "Fine, I will do it with my back to you." We both went silent. I carefully walked to the corner of the room and looked down upon the soggy mash of Cheerios awaiting me. They were honey nut. Without waiting, I plunged in. The bowl was deeper than I expected. I heard cries of laughter coming from Steve, but I kept going until I was done. I freaking love Cheerios, I said with a smile. 3 days had passed since my first Cheerio Man encounter. I had since then started experimenting with different things. I tried chocolate milk, but the whole experience just felt interracial. I tried adding sugar as well, but the cleanup became a hassle. Finally, I settled on bananas. They were the missing part of the equation. My roommates were growing suspicious. I had never eaten Cheerios in the 2 years we'd lived together, and now I was going through a box per day, and nobody had ever seen me eat a bowl. I knew I had to be careful. I called Steve to joke about it a few days after it had happened, and he didn't remember. I lost $50 but gained an experience that can only be equated with touching God. It was a fair trade. With Steve out of the way, I felt a little more relaxed, but not as relaxed as I could be, I whispered quietly to myself. A grin formed on my face as I slowly exited my room and made my way down the stairs. Only my roommate, Lynn, was home. She was gorgeous, but I had no time for girls. I had Cheerios. I carefully poured the bowl of Cheerios into the deepest bowl I could find. I delicately sliced one whole banana and placed it meticulously around the bowl. This is going to be a great night, I thought. I snuck outside to let the Cheerios moisten. I snuck inside quickly and immediately did it. Then I went to clean up and headed to the sink to wash the dishes when I heard it. "What are you doing?" My roommate Lynn stood there barely awake. "I am just having a bowl of Cheerios," I smiled. "I am freaking hungry, and you keep eating them. Now I am craving them. Hand them over." I was stiff again. She eagerly filled her mouth with my magic potion of Cheerios, bananas, and milk. "God, this is good. No wonder you like it so much," she said as little streams of milk poured down her chin. "You're getting it all over yourself," I said. "Oh, I will get it. This is so much better than usual. What did you add?" "Cinnamon," I sputtered. "It doesn't taste like cinnamon, but it does taste really familiar." I always knew she was a minx. She looked as if she winked at me, but I played it off as if my eyes were playing tricks on me. She sloppily finished off the bowl and hopped up on the counter. She put the bowl in the sink and said, "I always knew you banged Cheerio." This time, she definitely winked at me. Life had been good since Lynn called me out about my new addiction. The truth was, she loved the subtle taste mixed with milk, as her ex used to do the same in her soy milk when he was mad at her. She caught him doing it, but had already developed a taste for it. So, our relationship started. I would sneak out of my room late at night and do it. My life had taken a turn for the better, and I was loving every minute of it. Story 18. I was doing our thing. My ex-girlfriend in her parents' basement. Her grandmother was in town and decided she needed to use the basement bathroom at 3:30 in the morning for some reason. She walks downstairs to see her granddaughter with a nice blonde pale boy she had just eaten dinner with earlier. My ex didn't notice Gram on account of her facing the other way. Her grandma stood there stunned, waiting for a reaction. So I shrugged with one arm and mouthed sorry, but I didn't stop because I didn't want my girlfriend to know. The next morning, her grandma acted like it didn't happen, and my ex was none the wiser, raising the mead horn in gratitude to Odin. Story 19. My mom has a friend. Her name is Barbara, nicknamed Barbie. They went to high school together, and she used to come to visit quite a bit. I knew she had kids, but every time she'd come to visit, they would be with their dad. Barbie and her now ex-husband Jim were divorced. I never really thought much of my mom's boring friend Barbie until I got slapped in the face by a whole metric ton of hormones. Then it happened. Barbie was hot. Fast forward to the summer of my senior year in high school, I was lean, playing football, and enjoying life. I am home, and who should show up? Barbie. She drove a blue SUV, and as I saw it pull down the driveway, I instantly turned into a monster. Something was odd about this time, though. She had extra people in the car. Barbie gets out, and then I see Stephanie. Stephanie was gorgeous, brunette, athletic, with blue eyes that would melt your heart. I probably looked calm on the outside, but I was a wreck on the inside. I give Barbie the biggest hug, And then I meet her lovely daughter. I smiled at her, and she smiled back. We didn't say much because we were both social blockheads. Looking back on it, it was obvious what we were both thinking. They settle in, have dinner with the parents, and I go to bed, treating my body like it's an amusement park. The next morning, I get up, forgetting that we have company. My mom and Barbie had gone down to have lunch with some old high school friends and do some other stuff that ladies do, I guess. Boxers and nothing else apparently was the choice of attire for the previous evening. I get up and start to make breakfast, and as I hear footsteps, I realize, crap, Barbie and her daughter are here. That soon fades into, aw yeah, Barbie and her daughter are here. I've got some muscularity going on at the present time of the year thanks to my football training, might as well use the opportunity. Stephanie comes upstairs, looking incredible with no makeup on. I realize we are all alone in the house, and she asks me how I am. I told her I slept well. Hopefully she did as well. She says she was restless because she has a hard time sleeping in new rooms. I jokingly offer, in a moment of pure genius, something to the effect of, "Oh, my bed is really comfy." She says, "Oh yeah? Let's go see it." I don't think I could wrap my brain around the idea of what was going to happen. We go down to my room, and before I knew it, it happened. Story 20. My teacher was always really flirty with me and would ask me to do things that he thought I wouldn't notice, such as making me shake spray paint for longer than usual and melting the nails into place while he held them from the other side. I would make a point to wear extra dresses on the days I had his class. Every time I work on an engine now, I get in the mood, thinking of him. He's unmarried, so I had zero guilt. I'd wear short plaid skirts and help to grab things. One day, he made me hold some huge piece of metal which consisted of me wrapping my arms around it while he was getting dents out. My hands happened to be wedged up against his downtown area, and I looked up at him and gave him my best Seth's face and teased him until he completely screwed up the metal because he wasn't paying attention. Seeing him from time to time sends shivers down my spine, and I have an ultimate fantasy because of him. Story 21. I used to love to give blowy on the road, and I hoped people driving by would see. I also did it with someone in a public park. I gave hand jies to my boyfriend in movie theaters all the time. Don't open your eyes, don't look into his eyes, and don't look at his dong ever. Yup, I was weird. A lot more guys are biased than you think, if you just give them the chance to be open about it. And some of those guys are totally down with MFM. You know, I am pretty much down for anything. If I am with a guy and he starts talking about his fantasies and he's not a complete sociopath about it, I will just be like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds hot. And then we can do this, and he will love whatever I say. Then we just bounce off each other's ideas until we get to a really weird place that neither of us thought we would go. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.